Karen Whitfield stood in her pristine driveway at 6:47 a.m., clutching her phone with white knuckles as she dialed 911 for the third time in 2 weeks. "Yes, this is an emergency," she declared to the dispatcher, her voice trembling with righteous indignation. "My neighbor has planted," she paused dramatically, *sunflowers* that are clearly violating our HOA covenant by exceeding the approved height limit of 4 feet. They're at least 6 feet tall and growing. The dispatcher's long sigh was audible even through Karen's iPhone. "Ma'am, we've discussed this. Tall flowers are not a police matter." But Karen wasn't listening. She was already marching across the street in her monogrammed slippers, phone in one hand, measuring tape in the other, ready to document what she considered the greatest threat to Willowbrook Estates' property values since the great mailbox color incident of 2019. 20 minutes later, Officer Martinez arrived to find Karen perched precariously on a stepladder, trying to measure a cheerful sunflower while her bewildered neighbor, Tom Chen, watched from his porch with his morning coffee. "Ma'am, please come down from there," Officer Martinez called out, barely suppressing a chuckle as Karen wobbled dangerously, her measuring tape tangled in the flower's broad leaves. "I need photographic evidence," Karen shrieked, phone held high above her head. "These monstrosities are destroying our neighborhood's aesthetic integrity." Tom shook his head, grinning. "Officer, I planted these for my daughter's science project. She's studying pollinators." Officer Martinez looked between the beautiful garden full of bees and butterflies, then at Karen, who was now taking notes in a leather-bound journal titled HOA Violations Log, Volume Via. "Mrs. Whitfield," the officer said gently, "there's no law against tall flowers." Karen's face flushed crimson. "But there are rules. I am the HOA compliance officer, and I have standards to maintain." She thrust her phone toward the officer, showing him a screenshot of the neighborhood covenant. Section 12.4 clearly states that all plantings must maintain community standards. What Karen didn't realize was that Tom had done his homework. 6 months earlier, he'd submitted a formal request to plant a pollinator garden, complete with native wildflowers and sunflowers. The HOA board, tired of Karen's increasingly petty complaints, had unanimously approved it, hoping it might finally give her something positive to focus on. Tom cleared his throat. "Karen, I have the approval letter from the board. Would you like to see it?" The measuring tape slipped from Karen's fingers as her face went pale. She'd missed that board meeting, the one time in 3 years she'd been absent due to a dental appointment. The very meeting where they discussed encouraging biodiversity and reducing enforcement of overly restrictive aesthetic guidelines. That's impossible," she stammered, climbing down from the ladder. "I would have been notified." Tom disappeared into his house and returned with a folder thick with documents. He handed her a copy of the approval letter, stamped and signed by all 5 board members, including the president's note. "This initiative represents exactly the kind of community improvement we hope to see more of." Karen stared at the paper as if it were written in hieroglyphics. For the first time in her tenure as compliance officer, she was completely, utterly wrong. The sunflowers weren't violations. They were *approved enhancements*. Officer Martinez tipped his hat and headed back to his patrol car, but not before stopping to compliment Tom on his gorgeous garden. "My wife would love to see this. Mind if I bring her by sometime?" "Absolutely." Tom smiled, then looked at Karen, who stood frozen in his driveway, still clutching the approval letter. "Karen, you're welcome to visit anytime too. Maybe bring your grandkids. Kids love sunflowers." But Karen was already retreating to her house, her mind racing. If the board was approving changes without properly consulting her, what other enhancements might be lurking in the neighborhood? Her carefully controlled domain was slipping through her manicured fingers, and she could feel the foundations of her authority cracking like sidewalk pavement after a hard frost. As she slammed her front door, one thought consumed her. This was war.